In terms of the liver, I have friends, there's one behind the mirror, who says to me, it recovers, it can regenerate, you know, it's an amazing organ. Up to a point.
I think up to a point. There's a colleague of mine, Kevin Moore, who gives an example where if you prick your hand with a pin, it'll heal. If you do it a few times, it'll still heal. Do it 10,000 times and it's not going to make it. And that's a bit like the liver. So if you keep hitting it and hitting it and hitting it, it won't regenerate. And we know that liver disease is rampant. It's one of the top 5 causes of death, but the only one that's going up in the UK. And alcohol is the 3rd commonest cause of preventable death in the UK.
Just in terms of your surgery, how have you noticed a difference in the age of people coming to see you? And what do you notice about our society? Because you see it on the front line.
You know, I think the people that are coming in are getting younger, so there is an increase in people in their 30s now presenting with liver disease, and mainly it's alcohol related in the UK. Famously, that people who are younger than that, so the sort of teenagers or early 20s, are drinking a bit less. And that's an interesting social phenomenon that I guess we can follow. But in general, the age of liver disease is going down.
OK. Dominic, we've got this from on Facebook from Saroj, who says, does alcohol have any positive effects on your health?
Well, this is one of the confusing elements today. We heard in Christian's piece just before you came to us that there are people who say, well, look, there is evidence out there that alcohol consumption in certain groups, so for example, in women over the age of 55, if they drink a small amount of alcohol each week, 5 units, which isn't very much, that's 2.5 glasses of wine perhaps, if they drink a small amount of alcohol each week, that can be shown to have benefits for their heart, for example. But then we hear, on the other hand, the Chief Medical Officer, for all the Chief Medical Officers in the UK, in England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, all saying there is no safe limit now at which alcohol can be drunk without increasing the risk of some damage to your health. So I think people are going to find it very confusing and difficult to know who to believe and where the evidence lies.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit rich, a journalist asking a doctor about drinking habits, but in terms of that, after work, not I need a drink, but I would like a drink, it helps me relax. Isn't that a positive side to it?
You know, it's just about being informed of the risks. For sure, alcohol plays a key part in our society. You know, it's social glue, isn't it? People feel happier when they've got a drink in their hands to socialise. But the problem is knowing the risk. If you speak to a cardiologist, they will tell you that there is a slight decrease in cardiovascular risk with a very small amount of alcohol, 50 mils of red wine. I'm not sure how many people could face drinking 50 mils and then closing the bottle back up. But the problem is, when you drink more than that, it's offset by the other risks of liver disease and cancer. And I very much believe that it's just about being informed of those risks.
OK. Dominic, this anonymous question from text. Where do the guidelines fit in with adverts and cheap deals?
Well, it's interesting. There's a passing reference, really, to cheap deals in the guidelines, but there's no real reference to minimum pricing on alcohol, which would see an end to those cheap deals. That is something the government in Scotland is trying to bring in, but it is subject to a legal challenge. And so the official line from the Department of Health in England is that it's going to wait and see what happens to that legal challenge before it makes any moves on its own. But it's not ruling it out, but it's not ruling it in.
Do you, as someone who deals with the problems that alcohol creates, do you sometimes get cross when you see some of the deals that are available? It's the cheaper drinks that are the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The price of alcohol in the last 2 decades has fallen by, the relative price has fallen by something like 300%, actually. And, you know, cheap booze is a major contributor to the death of people who've got alcoholic liver disease. And the problem is they're the vulnerable ones that are often exposed to this cheap alcohol. And stopping alcohol for them can give them another 10 years of life, but carrying on drinking means almost certain death from liver disease.
OK, I've got one question. Dominic, I'll put it to you first. This is from Jean in Newcastle. It says, we're constantly bombarded with research